Good evening. Thank you all for coming here tonight. It is a privilege and honor to welcome you here to Mission Workshop for the first of what we hope is going to be maybe an ongoing series of what we're calling Founders Events. This is put together by Mission and Bike Magazine. I'm Terry Gross. This is Fresh Air. Screwed it up already. My name is Mike Ferrantino. I'm part of the furniture at Bike Magazine. We've been around for about 20 years, and our whole thing has been trying to tell stories about mountain biking through images, through words, trying to capture some sense of what the sport of mountain biking is, who the people are, what the stories are being told. A lot of times when it comes to telling stories, though, you can sort of report on them from the periphery, and you may not really know what the story was. When it comes to the birth of this sport, which was founded in some sort of love-child union between the traditions of cycling and some anarchistic sense of tinkering freedom, the people who founded it are a bunch of eclectic and amazing individuals, and it's really it's better if they're the ones to tell the stories. So what we're trying to do tonight is tell some stories and have a conversation. You are all part of this conversation, and this will be a little less of a just standard presentation where someone stands up and talks for a while, and a little more of an involved back and forth where you will be encouraged to participate and be part of this. The man who I'm about to introduce has been involved in the sport since its birth. He has OG status. He apprenticed beneath Charlie Cunningham and Joe Breeze. If you look at like the old washed out Wendy Cragg images from the very beginning of the sport, when you'd see people standing on their clunkers atop Pearl Pass, there'd be this skinny bearded freak grinning a little bit harder than all the rest. And he founded Ibis Cycles in 1981 at the ripe age of 27 years old. And while you could talk about the various innovations that happened through Ibis and what Ibis achieved and still is achieving, having weathered the entire span of mountain biking and everything that goes on with that, there's something that was brought to life with Ibis that I think is more important than the bikes, and that would be the sense of community and the people that were involved in Ibis and the understanding of those people and what they were doing at the time. And on top of all of that, this irrepressible and irreverent sense of humor, which this is the bike industry, and it's about riding bikes, and we're all basically avoiding adulthood by riding bikes. But we get precious sometimes when we take ourselves a little too seriously. And I don't think that that's anything that ever could have been leveled at Ibis Bicycles. Now, at that point, I'm not really good at speaking in front of people, so I'm going to get out of here and hand this over to Scot Nicol.
Thanks, Mike. Uh-oh. A little bit loud there. Got some feedback? Okay, that sounds a little better. Thanks. Hang on a sec. We've got technical difficulties. I have this fancy mic here that's wireless. I wanted one of those TED Talks ones that went here, but couldn't afford it, unfortunately. That sounds better. Thank you. When Bike Magazine and Mission Workshop approached me to do this event, they said they wanted to hear about Ibis, and I thought that sounded like a really good thing. And as Mike so eloquently put it, pretty much said everything I was planning on saying already, so I'm going to rewrite my speech right now. Thanks, Mike. Anyway, they wanted me to talk about Ibis, and to me, Ibis is certainly not me. Ibis is a really wonderful collaboration, 32 years now of collaboration with a bunch of really great people. And since we're doing this in San Francisco, and Ibis is very close to here its whole life, turns out that a whole bunch of the people that made Ibis what it was all those years and continue to are close by. And so I invited them all to come here, or not all of them, but a few of them, and a few of them obliged and are here. So what I'm going to do tonight is I'm going to talk a little bit about the history, about how we started and some of the early days, and then I'm going to bring up some of the people that helped us during our formative years, and we're going to open it to questions when people feel like it, and we've got little microphones to walk around, just like on Jerry Springer, whatever that is, and so hopefully you'll partake in all of that. Yo. So in the early days, I was, as Mike said, I was apprenticing with Joe and Charlie, and that was one of the stranger things you could imagine, because those guys are on completely opposite ends of the planet as far as philosophy and how they approach things. And it was a wonderful thing, because I got to view the creation of a bike from a much more traditional standpoint, and then from the standpoint of, in Charlie's standpoint of like, it's perfectly good, so we're going to take it apart and we're going to reinvent it. That was his attitude on everything, which was very eye-opening for me, because I didn't ever really experience that sort of engineering mindset that Charlie had. So I got a wonderful education. Then it came time to hang my own shingle and build my own frames, and I was trying to come up with names, and I didn't want to name it after myself, but I liked the connotation of light and flying that a bird name gave you, and so I started to contemplate bird names, and one of them, obviously, Ibis is a bird, and that's the name I settled on. But two of the names I was contemplating, and this is just we're going to start with a little history here, a little historical reference. Two of the names I was contemplating were Merlin and Kestrel, and they're both they're both raptors, both birds. So what I have here, and I decided not to call it Merlin, because I actually, as a teenager, I had a Merlin road bike that was a steel bike built in England by Bob Jackson, because Bob Jackson grew up racing Merlin road bikes, and so I didn't want to name it Merlin because that name was taken. And then another name I was contemplating was Kestrel, and for whatever reason I chose not to do that one, but I chose Ibis. But this is a wonderful little bit of history. This is a Kestrel T-shirt, but it says Titanium Products, and Kestrel is a carbon fiber company, and they always have been. It turns out that two different companies showed up at the same trade show with the same name one year. Both Kestrel and Merlin were named Kestrel. And the people at Kestrel had trademarked the name first. And so this is a super collector's item, because Kestrel Metalworks changed its name to Merlin Metalworks right after that. And that's just, I'm glad that nobody, we didn't double choose Ibis. I didn't have to change the Ibis name to something else, because that would not have been any fun. So anyway, that's the name just came strictly from me wanting to name it after a beautiful flying thing. And if you've ever seen a picture of an Ibis, it's a wading shorebird like a stork. It's a really ugly bird. It's really gorgeous in flight, but but the only picture I ever saw of it before I named it was in flight. So that was an interesting discovery when I saw the ugly bird there. So one of the things again that we've done is we've always collaborated with people ever since day zero, and I always really enjoyed having artists work with us, because I like to have a lot of creative people around me. And so from the very, very beginning, we always created really neat sort of neat graphics, and this is very obviously 80s. This is the first shirt we ever did. So I think it was 81, 82 maybe, right after we started the company. So it's kind of here's a one that went through the dryer a little too much, I think. Little white guy, kind of fun. Anyway, I just I forget. This is a guy named Kurt who did this, and I don't remember. I didn't keep track of him. Fortunately, I've kept track of most of the other people who we've worked with over the years. So I want to point out a picture over here. Get everybody to move a little bit so you don't fall asleep right away. So this is me on on Mount Diablo. I grew up over in Walnut Creek, and this is me on Mount Diablo on Ibis number 7 back in, this is somewhere late 81, early 82. It's winter, so maybe early 1982. But I'm wearing my Breezer t-shirt, and as Mike mentioned, big old beard, which I seem to be, they're back now, obviously. But yeah, that's like way before helmets or I'm wearing Levi's, obviously, and this was, that's the real deal back then. So yeah, that's Ibis number 7. And I really enjoyed sliding sideways on bikes. That was a really fun thing that I did in the halls of my high school over there. Those smooth concrete floors. So anyway, that's just like a little bit of legit core history right there. So in the early days, we had a lot of fun with all the humor, as Mike said, and I have a well, actually, let me regroup here. I'm sorry. Here's another cool shirt. This is from the first annual Whiskey Town Downhill, legendary downhill up by Reading, 1981. How many of you weren't born in 1981 here? All right. A few of you. Anyway, so yeah, this is a cool shot of a guy named Monty Ward, who's a kind of a well-known racer down in Southern California. I'll just kind of work through the shirts here a little bit. We're going to jump around a little bit in history, but one of the other, we're gonna move forward a few years, but this is one of my favorites ever. So this is our more on tubing T-shirt. So actually Scott has a bike called the Genius now, but there was a Columbus Genius tubing and there was Ritchie Logic tubing. So we have first there's Logic, then there's Genius, and so I remember we were sitting around the shop one day and I was just talking to some of the employees, and I was saying, God, those names Logic and Genius really bug me. Why don't we be fun to just make fun of that and just call it Moron or something? And one of my employees, and this is back in the day of steel double butted tubing, and one of the employees says, "Oh, you mean because there's more on the ends?" And it's like, oh man, that's so perfect, So see, that's another idea of, just like a little back and forth collaboration that happened, and you came up with these just wonderful little, self-deprecating moments. So yeah, more on tubing, more on the ends. And the cool thing about this is it was like, this was custom drawn tubing that we had Tanguay do for us, and it was special stuff. We worked with them a lot and made some really nice bikes. The Mojo was made. The original steel Mojo was made with this, and it was it's still kind of a bike of legend. Probably some of you here. I know some of you have them, and so it's that's the kind of the like super legit tubing, but we had to make fun of it because it's just not as fun if you don't make fun of it. So let's see what else. Chap, can you take that picture off for me? Yeah.
How did the hand job happen?
The question from the audience, that's a great one, is how did the hand job happen? And for those of you who don't know about the hand job, we are going to get into that a little bit later. This is called a hand job bottle lever. And this is what you use to open beer, or soda pop, if that's your preference. So the hand job was a cable stop that went on the back of the bike. So back in the day, we all had cantilever brakes. This is before disc brakes and before V brakes. So we had cantilever brakes, and they needed a stop in the middle. They had straddle cables, and you needed a cable stop. And so you either had one on your stem, and then you had to have one on the back of the bike somewhere. And so Ross Schaefer, who built Salsa bikes, built these really neat one-sided stops on the back of his bikes. And I saw it, and something in my brain just said, I see a hand there holding this cable. So So we hired Michael Cherney, who's a jeweler, to make this beautiful lost wax casting of a hand, and it was a cable stop, and it went on these steel bikes, and called the hand job. Of course, what else are you going to call it? And so that's where that came from. And then, unfortunately, Shimano invented the V-brake, and we didn't need to have a cable stop anymore, and so we got rid of the hand job, and that's when we made the hand job bottle lever, which I was just showing you right here. So that's a nice little item. If you can find one of those on eBay, they go for about $100 right now. They're pretty expensive, so I'll be keeping my eye on this one. So I mentioned Ross Schaefer. I want to go back over here, keep you guys awake. So here's a picture of a race-in that we had up in Annandale State Park for about 10 years running, and it was called the Punk Bike Enduro. And it's actually the Dirt Rag folk are still doing a version of the Punk Bike Enduro back in Pittsburgh. And so this was a race that was an actual enduro. The enduro racing now for mountain bikes is just completely taken the world by storm. There's a World Enduro Series. Everybody's racing enduro. It's a wonderful form of racing. For those of you who don't know, it's a format where like the Punk Bike Enduros, we would have 10 stages, and they would only last 30 seconds to 2 or 3 minutes each. And so everybody would do their run, and then you'd regroup, and it was super social. You'd hang out, you'd talk, you'd tell stories about your run, and then you'd go pedal really hard again on another section, and you'd do that all day long, all over. We did it all over Annandale State Park, and now they're happening all over the planet. They tend to be more gravity oriented. These were both gravity and climbing, but this was. This was the real deal. This is Joe Breeze right here. There's Ross Schaefer, who I just mentioned. This is Wes Williams, the widely considered the father of the 29er, who was an Ibis employee. And then this is Gordon Burns, who I saw yesterday at the Bike Peddler. He's still there. And so anyway, this was just one of those. I'll never forget these events. They were so much fun. And this is to me, this is the core of mountain biking. Is this like we go out and race each other, but look at us, I mean, we're all, except for maybe Gordon, everybody's smiling, everybody's having a really good time. I think Gordon is just thinking through the next section there or something like that. So anyway, that's for me, those are the great memories of why we do all this. It's all about the people that are involved, and so I want to talk about. I want to bring up our first collaborator here tonight, and I'm just going to tell you right now, it's John Castellano. He's the guy who created the bow tie, and I'm going to have, in a minute, I'll have John come up, and I want him to tell you about the first time we met, which was up in Marin County. But I want to give you guys a little background. Not a lot of people know about John. Well, if you've read the 30, we have a lot of these stories on our website, and this one's on there. But John grew up in northern New Jersey, and he went to school at MIT, which is why he can come up with things like this. But John has a very, very cool backstory. And that is, he was in the movie The Godfather. He was a young boy, and he's an actor. He was in The Godfather. But his uncle, his real life uncle, was one of the stars of the movie, and he was Clemenza. And Clemenza was this cool guy. And if any of you remember The Godfather, one of the most famous scenes, one of the most famous lines of the whole movie, was when they popped somebody in the back of a car, Clemenza, and who else was it? It was like Paulie or somebody. And the scene was, what's that? They popped Paulie. And so anyway, the scene was, they shot this guy in the back of the car, and there's Clemenza and the driver, and Clemenza starts walking away, and he says, "Leave the gun. take the cannoli. The cannoli is this beautiful Italian food. So anyway, so that's John's uncle, and John's sister and dad are all through the movie in various spots. And John taught Francis Ford Coppola a few cues about acting when some people are having some problems. Anyway, we won't go into all that. But that's John's like little not dark but little wonderful secret that he has. Can you just come up and briefly talk about? I want to talk about the first time we met, and I think it's a fun little story. This is John Castellano, everybody.
Hi, everybody. So you can tell by the T-shirt about when I met Scott. I had been, I was starting an off-road wheelchair project, and when I was, that's better, I was attempting to learn how to weld. So I cut apart my old mountain bike, and I started welding it back together with, shortening my chainstays. And having trouble with it, so I heard about this lecture coming up.
A little bit like this.
Just like this, at Plain Away Bikes, basically about the history of Ibis. And I'd been trying to find information about welding. I called some guy named Tom Ritchie, and I was asking him about what welding rod, what brazing flux, and he's like, oh, that's proprietary information, we can't tell you any of that. And then I go to this lecture by Scott, and I hear about the history of Ibis. This was like mid-'80s, I don't know. And the long history of Ibis at that time.
Yeah, right.
And then afterwards, I came up and said, okay, so what kind of welding rod do you use? What kind of brazing flux? He's like, oh, well, we use a bronze rod and we use such and such brand name flux, and this is how we weld up the vent holes. And I'm like, okay, this is a guy I can deal with. So he helped me get going on the wheelchair project, and then I went off and did that for a while. So when I came up with my bike design, I kind of knew one of the guys I wanted to talk to about it, that was a core person, what I call a core person. So I'd come up with a bike design, and I had built a prototype of it and was testing it in secret because I was planning on filing a patent on it. And while you're doing that, you're supposed to kind of come up with all kind of different configurations. And so one of the things I did was I was looking at bike geometries, and one of the geometries was the Ibis geometry. I sort of took the leaders in the field, Bontrager, and plotted their geometries. And what I did was I drew what I called the descender geometry, and I drew the ascender geometry. And then I started looking for a linkage, a way to get from one to the other. And so I superimposed them, and I noticed that certain distances didn't change. And so I started laying tubes in there over those. I was like, okay, I can connect this to this and keep that. And so that eventually led to the bow tie design. I had a sort of a pivoted version of it. It's related to J.P. Morgan, was a local San Francisco guy, and he was building bikes with two shocks. He had a seat post swing arm and a wheel swing arm. So I was kind of doing the same thing, but in a simpler linkage. So I had built the pivoted one, and then I started playing around with the pivotless one, which you see here. So at the time, all I had was this. And you see the two sketches we have there. That's the top one is the very first sketch, and then the lower one is the sketch that basically turned into this. So I've been holding this and bending it and flexing it, saying, okay, it flexes that way, it's real stiff that way, okay. And then one time, Scott and I were in the car for 10 hours to drive to Utah, 1,000 miles in 10 hours, I think.
Which is supposed to take a lot longer than 10 hours, yeah.
And so I had him like cornered, so I kept saying, this might actually work, this thing might work. So that was in October, and then in January we started working together and built a prototype of it. So this was the second bike that Ibis did. But that's a little bit of history of how the bow tie came to be and why it's good to drive to Utah.
Good to do road trips, exactly. And John has his original bow tie drawing up here, and then these two.
That's the print that this bike was made to, and a couple of the first sketches. And anyone has any questions later on, happy to chat.
And one other thing, some of you may have noticed I printed out some stuff, and one of the things I printed was this. When John and I spent a lot of time together, and one of the things he used to talk about was all his little projects as a kid, and so that is his motorized unicycle. But there's a picture, he's got a brake and throttle here, and just so it's rather ridiculous.
You ride it with roller skates on. It's easy to crash.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. I'm not sure what you're supposed to do with that thing now, but yeah. All right. So there's another. Is Chris here somewhere? Hi, Chris. So since we're talking about cool things that are up on the wall here, everybody's neighbor, Chris McNally, is here, and we started hanging out together a few years ago, and I didn't realize this, but there's a drawing up there of Rana's bike, of Chris's girlfriend's bike, and he actually bought an Ibis single speed. We made 26 single speeds back in the late 90s, and we made one for each letter of the alphabet. And and I have one. There's one at the Ibis Museum, and it's the letter H, and we can talk about that offline because it's a nasty word. And everybody had a name on the top tube chosen for their bike. So anyway, was yours one of the? Did it have a name on it when you got it?
It was called the Snake Boat.
Snake Boat?
Yeah.
Yeah, and you bought it used, right, secondhand?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, luckily
That's okay.
Rana's not here because
Yeah.
she'd be giving me so much crap for it. Yeah.
Well, anyway,
Secondhand.
so tell us. Why don't you come up here, Chris? Because I think this is a pretty neat story, and it plays into exactly what I'm talking about here. This is Chris McNally, everybody.
Yeah, so I guess I was kind of transitioning between East Coast and West Coast, and I was living back in Colorado in my mom's basement a few years ago, too recently. And I was trying to figure out where I was going to move back to, and I was back visiting my buddy who works at CCA now.
Oh, yeah.
So he was like, yeah, there's this girl who has this single-speed Ibis. And I was like, oh, she probably doesn't because there's only a few of those made. And he's like, no. And so we went back and forth, and he introduced me to her. And the first thing I asked her was if she had this bike. And she's like, yeah. And it turns out there's this whole like ex-boyfriend story with it. But anyway, so I was like, well, we should go ride. And eventually, like, I pestered her enough, and she came out to Colorado to ride. And I had just bought this one I found on Craigslist that was like, it was the only one I think that, according to this dude, that got out of California. And so, I had my bike in the car, and she's like, had her original one, and it's a pretty dorky story, but we started dating, and I ended up moving out to California because of that.
I don't think that's dorky. I think it's great. I love it. Yeah. That's great. And I think that guy was lying to you too. I don't think it's the only one that went out of California, but that's all right.
I'm going to change the name to something.
Yeah. So I want to. So Chris has been illustrating all of our instruction manuals and has done all the gorgeous illustration that you see all over our website. And that came about because he actually sent some illustrations in for me to see, and I said, yeah, that was cool. And it was probably one of those moments when I was distracted. But then he went down to Ibis with Rana one day, and you were going to go visit someone else in Santa Cruz that makes bicycles, and I think we nabbed Chris to do illustration work before he made it over to that other company. So we're very happy about that. Anyway, Chris, if you look at our website, it's full of great illustrations, and we have an instruction book, and he does all that, and all sorts of other cool stuff too. Some, I don't think there's any of your T-shirts up there, is there? Not yet. Oh well. Anyway, did you have anything else to add to that?
I don't think so.
So it's been a wonderful collaboration, and I think arguably it changed Chris's life a little bit. Hopefully for the better, and it's really cool being able to get to know people and then have them be part of your circle and your life, and it changes everybody's life.
Yeah, I guess I do have one thing to add.
Yep.
It was like weirdly synchronistic the way it happened because I was trying to find a place to live, and in 2008, I think I had like one paying job, and I shouldn't be saying this being recorded. But it was like, I met a girl, I moved to a new place, found work with people that I really liked, and it was pretty amazing. It was really weird the whole time, so it still is.
That's good.
Are you still riding that bike?
Yeah.
Rana too?
Yeah. Totally. We got new ones. So after that was kind of like fan art, and then I got actually hired by Ibis, and then I was sent those two, which we kind of replaced our like old ones with, and it's been hard. I mean, I still ride the old one still, the steel one. It's fun. And I think when Scott came over to my studio, I felt bad because it was like jammed in this box with a whole bunch of other stuff like crammed in there and all like filthy.
Yeah, but there's about
embarrassed
10
when you
other
saw that.
ibises hanging from the various places, so I didn't,
Yeah.
believe me, I didn't feel too bad. It looked pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thanks, Chris. That's wonderful. So feel free to look at all of Chris's stuff up on the wall. And I think for our we're actually going to be putting an edit together of this. We're live broadcasting on the internet right now, and then we're going to put an edit together after this. And so I think we'll have a lot of B-roll of a bunch of Chris's artwork up there that we have. Another really fun artist that we collaborated with was a guy named Bill Evans, and he was our painter actually. And we didn't, he was just a guy who we hired to do our paint for us, along with Erica, our other painter. And we noticed him doodling, and he's like, "Wow, that's pretty cool." And so I just asked him to start doing some illustrations for a catalog, and it's a little hard for me to see, but up here above is a bunch of large prints I did of the what we call Billustrations, because Bill illustrated them, and we based our entire 1997 catalog. We had a really big catalog in '97 with Bowtie in it and a whole bunch of other bikes. And when I was thinking about the catalog and how we were going to lay it out and what kind of the theme and just how do we make it fun, I was listening to a Tom Waits song called "Step Right Up," and it's everybody's a winner, bargains galore. It's this whole funny song about kind of marketing and advertising and making fun of it. And I thought, what better thing to use than something that's making fun of marketing to put a marketing piece together. So Bill did all of these great illustrations, and you can see them all across the top over here. And hopefully we'll do B-roll of that for you as well. And then he always had fun little. This is kind of his style, It's like little. We did a limited edition of some T-shirts for Interbike. 1,000 Elvis impersonators can't be wrong, It's Ibis, baby. And so, and this is just a guy who was working in the back, really super quiet and reclusive, and just like came out of his shell when he started putting stuff down on paper. It's pretty fun. And then Ian Riedel is a guy who used to work for us, and his wife Sue we had an Elvis theme going for a little while, I guess. So we had these musettes that we made, and we had, it's like this. We're pretty self-effacing in our humor usually, but this one we've got Easter Island and the pyramids and Elvis and Ibis, right? And it's like, again, pointing fun. Hopefully everybody got the joke, but anyway, every so often something truly extraordinary happens, and it's just like, who are you guys trying to kid? So, all right, what do we got here? Let's see. Oh, I like this one. So, through the years, we always, we'd have our little collaborations with Shimano or Suntour or whoever, and we'd have race teams, and we'd be into different disciplines. This one happened to be when we were sponsoring a kid named Andy Grayson doing trials, and so we did a lot of trials bikes in the late '80s, and it was a big sport then, and trials was getting a lot of play, and Andy got a call from the Johnny Carson show. And, back in the day, Johnny Carson was a really big deal. And they asked him if he would come over and be on the show. So he flew to New York, And here's a picture. Here's just, I have or Andy has a print of signed Johnny Carson thing, and so he did all this, set up all these trials sections all over Johnny's desk, and he jumped up on the desk and put Johnny on the floor, and he jumped over him a few times. The typical thing that Hans Ray does now with people. But the fun backstory here is that Andy came and he was wearing his jersey, and the Carson is the handlers are saying, oh, you can't wear that jersey, it's we got people paying all this money for ads, you can't wear that. And he's like, no, these I have to wear it, these guys are my sponsor, and so anyway they got into this big tussle, and he won, he beat NBC and the corporate giant, and here's little Ibis on national TV, we're just like, yes. So, and we recorded on a VCR, and I still have the tape. Anyway, that was a pretty major coup for us. So then then soon after that, Carson retired, and Andy went on to Letterman. Letterman called him, and he did the same thing on Letterman, and it was sort of regurgitation of what he did there, and he wore the jersey again, and they let him. And then a third time, Letterman just wanted him. I think he flew back to New York just to, how David Letterman does these things where back in the hallways and stuff. So they wanted Andy to go get David Letterman a Coke from the floor above, and then bring it down on his trials bike down the stairway. And he was working at a bike shop in Santa Rosa, and the bike shop says, no, you can't have the 4 days off. We need you. And he's like, I'm going to be on national TV. It's David Letterman. It's like, no, sorry, we're going to fire you. And so he goes, it's one that's still there, amazingly. And no, it's a great shop. He had a momentary lapse in reason. But he went back there, and he came back, and he didn't have a job. He got fired. And it made the front page of our local newspaper, and it was like this big deal, I'm going to keep my lips sealed. But anyway, that was a pretty funny moment. Again, we're not going to talk too much about tech here. If we do want to get into some tech questions, we can do it. I've got a Ripley up there, which is our latest bike, the 29er, and it's sort of we're starting off with the old school, and then moving into sort of what the latest greatest from us is. And I'm probably don't want to do it here in front of the big audience, but if anybody wants to talk about this later, I'm more than happy to. But it's a pretty spectacular bike. Another one of my very favorite collaborations that happened recently was maybe somebody trying to tell me something there. Hi. I didn't even see you there. Our designer Roxy is here. I think you should just step up and say hi. Come on. So this is our latest. This is the latest wave of collaborators here, and Roxy's the person who designs all of our bikes now. Has started with us in 2003 or 4, something like that.
Yeah.
And did the first Mojo that we came out with in 2005, and then she has done every bike since, and does a lot of the other products. Just gets her designer touch on everything that
rock guards. I do the rock guards.
Rock
too.
guards. Anyway, Roxy came in to us with not any bike design experience, which is exactly what we wanted. We wanted a entirely fresh look on everything, and she delivered. She gave us an amazing looking bike. And I think you have some show and tell, right? Or do you?
Yes.
We can do it later. I just
Okay.
I didn't realize you were here, and I wanted to make sure that I got you. And okay, so I'm going to call you up in a little bit, but I just want to like register that you're here and let everybody know Roxy's here. Okay, and now that horrible noise has stopped, so I can talk. Okay, so Marisa, you asked about the hand job, and we have the world's largest, heaviest hand job here, and this is a was a gift to me last year at Sea Otter, and we don't do the hand jobs anymore because the V brakes have killed them, and we were doing them on the Hakalugi, the cyclocross bike, for a while, but now everything's going from cantilever on cross bikes to disc. So fortunately, we have a legacy here that was created by Nick Taylor. Nick's here. And I want to tell you a story about how we started our collaboration with Nick, because it's one of my favorites of all time. I think we should pass this thing around, and hopefully you guys are wearing steel-toed shoes, because it's an impressive piece. And that's the replacement for this little guy here, but done in Nick's style. And Nick's style is to do things very large. So here's Nick's Mojo, and here's Ibis Maximus, which Nick built. And the way we met, I guess it was at Outer Bike, right? Is that our first meeting? So there's this wonderful event in Moab called Outer Bike, and you go there and you just ride bikes in the desert, and it's really fun. And so, of course, I don't remember, but Nick and Amy came in and rode bikes, and you already had Mojos then, and but it was just nice to get to know them a little bit, and then so a few months later, Amy emailed me and just like a picture of a bunch of rusty parts, and the rusty, she said Nick's starting a project, and it was just a picture of some rusty metal, and I said, okay, sounds good. And then, over the next few months, Amy kept sending me pictures as these rusty parts morphed into something a little bit different. And there was big plywood templates that were put out, and I soon began to realize, it's like, wow, this is really happening. This is a pretty interesting project we've got here. And I didn't pay too much attention to it, because I thought, okay, well, this is a really big, hard thing. And if I were making this, I would quit about 25% of the way through. And so it got to 25%, and then it got to 50%, and it was still going. And I was like, wow, this thing's amazing. It's, this was starting to take shape. And so at one point, I just, I couldn't believe, I just couldn't believe what I was seeing. I mean, it's pretty impressive, right? And so I said, okay, time out. I really thought that he was going to finish this thing. And I said, Nick, what's your day job? And so all he did was he sent me a picture. He said, well, here's the last thing I built. And this is pretty impressive. Nick was the lead fabricator on Cloudgate, which is Anish Kapoor's sculpture in Chicago. And so it's like, when I saw that, it's like, okay, carry on, you're good. Yeah, I'm sure you're gonna have no problem finishing that. And so I think, well, Nick, why don't you come up here? This is Nick Taylor, everybody. So I would like you to tell our friends here why this thing, why did you do this?
Well, we had a little Fat Tire Festival up in our neck of the woods. We're from Fort Bragg. And I was asked to build some signage, something that would draw some attention and get people excited about what we were doing up there. And I thought about it for a little bit, and I realized I had these big tractor tires sitting out back, and that someone was getting rid of. They had asked me if I wanted these, and I was like, wow, I mean, I gotta have these. I don't know what I'm gonna do with them, but I gotta have them. And they sat around for a year or so. And then as I thought about this project for signage, I realized okay, I got the wheels. I just need to build a frame. And, I mean, what else am I going to build? I'm riding a Mojo. I love the bike. It's a beautiful bike. Well, I'll just make it bigger. I don't know that makes it better, but I'll make it bigger. And then I had at it.
And so here's Maximus. So the funny thing, so last year we introduced this at Sea Otter. Nick and Amy brought it down, on a big truck and everything. We had it all covered with plastics. Nobody could see it, and there wouldn't be any, leakage. We had our little self-imposed embargo on the information, so the big announcement for us was that, and this is true, these are 59-inch wheels, so this is our 59er. We just went right past the 29er thing and straight to 59. So Nick, as you're going to start to gather here, doesn't really do anything the easy way. This is their house, and this is their shop, and there's a metal shop and a wood shop that Nick built, and this is two pole barns?
Timber frame barns.
Two timber frame barns from Dayton, somewhere?
Outside of Dayton.
Just outside of Dayton, Ohio, that he dismantled, shipped out to California, and reassembled and built this beautiful house and shop from the 18...
It's 100 years old.
100 years old?
We couldn't find any real information
Yeah.
on it.
Anyway, thanks. Yeah, Nick doesn't really do anything the easy way, but it sure is spectacular what he comes up with. And so anyway, this is Ibis Maximus, and it's living in their front yard right now, and we're working on trying to figure out a permanent home for it right now. So hopefully we'll have some good stuff to announce about that at some point in the future. But this is just another example of a wonderful collaboration that started with a conversation at hanging out, riding bikes with Nick and Amy, getting to know them, and it's Ibis Maximus is the result. So any of you fabricators here, you should probably corner Nick and just find out some of the details on this, because it's pretty astonishing, his skills and what what he went through to build this thing. And the hand job obviously is something that he built as well, another really amazing fabrication story. So thank you, Nick. Sure. Fantastic. We didn't even have a logo up here, do we? The original Ibis logo was or the one we did, we use now, the oval, was done by Cheryl Chapman. Can you come up here, Chap? Cheryl is my wife. And come on over. You didn't have to say anything. Anyway, Cheryl did the beautiful oval logo, and she went to CCAC, which is, as did Roxy and Chris, right? And which, as he alluded to, is now called CCA. So it used to be California College of Arts and Crafts, but crafts isn't really hip enough, so they took that away. So now it's just California College of Arts.
And I resent that.
So anyway, we had a little bit of an Addams Family fetish going for a while. It's hard to see this one. Let me get this one up. So this is Uncle Fester. We had a tandem called Cousin It and another tandem called Uncle Fester. And this is Cheryl's an illustrator, and this is a beautiful piece of art she did. And there's the logo she did for us back in 1993. And so anyway, Cheryl's been a big part of working behind the scenes and helping me out with this thing for a long, long time, and has.
But not back then.
Yeah, we weren't married back then. But anyway, so there's Uncle Fester, and if you look really close, you can see he's got some gnarly hair on his butt, which is my favorite part of this whole thing. So she fits right in with the whole sense of humor thing, right? Anyway, you can say something if you want, but I'm not going to.
Oh, I was thinking about when
Okay.
you and John Castellano were out riding, and you
Oh,
were
yeah.
popping a wheelie.
Yeah.
And Scott has this amazing ability to pop a wheelie for a really long time. So he's riding along, and he calls it running out of talent. So he's like in a wheelie for a long time. He's talking to his friend from France who was visiting, and he just like went all too far overboard, and he just tore a huge hole in his bike shorts. And he was riding with John Castellano, right?
Yep.
And John Castellano on the same ride broke his collarbone?
Yeah, yeah.
His collarbone.
Yeah.
And then Scott called me to go pick them up. And I picked them up in our brand new camper that I'd never driven before, and there wasn't the right shocks on it and stuff. And I was like, swirly all the way over there. And I picked him up, and the whole way to the hospital, John was trying to articulate what was exactly happening mechanically with his arm. Like he was, instead of just screaming in pain and being, like a normal, he was just, talking about the whole scientific process of how he was feeling, like he was feeling faint and all this stuff. And that was pretty interesting. And then Scott, with his giant flap, hanging because.
Thank you, Cheryl.
Anyway, that was good.
That's a good story. That running out of talent turned into the biggest hematoma bruise I've ever had,
Yeah.
and we named it the heinous anus after that. So it was pretty gnarly. Yeah. Anyway, thank you. Straight out of Cheryl's head. It wasn't me, I'll tell you that. Because it was all scraped off, I want to I'm going to throw a curveball at you. Stevel, can you come up here? Oh. I got something for you. Thank you. There's not bananas. Steve Smith, everybody.
Hi.
Artist extraordinaire. He fits into this whole program too.
I have a story.
I'm ready.
The bike this just occurred to me. The bike that I rode out here is a black Ibis that's locked up outside 10 years ago, 12 years ago, whenever the Sebastopol shop shut down.
Yeah, 12. Yeah.
Scott had one tube set left. And I think we were at a show. I had a show of paintings, and Scott asked me if I would trade him, I don't know, I was pretty drunk. He asked if I would trade him a painting for a tube set. Or I asked him if he would trade me a tube set for a painting. And I sat on the tube set for 8 years, maybe a decade. It could have been 20 years ago. I don't remember at this point. So I sat on this tube set forever, and I went to Robert Ives, who's back here. I think he had it for a little while. He was maybe going to build a bike for me. Gary Yokota used to build for Richie. He sat on it for a little while, I think. Or maybe not. I don't know. It passed around the family for a little while. And then another show I had several years later, Mo Robledo asked me if I wanted to trade him painting for a Fiat. Which I had no interest in, and I don't know where that offer came from. I said no, but I would like a road bike, and it just so happens that I have this tube set that Scott gave me forever ago. He was like, all right, bring it, let's do this. So I gave him a painting. So 2 paintings, and 10 or 12 or 18 years later, I got a really nice Mo Robledo built C-SIP with a Ibis tube set.
Nice.
So I've taken to calling it my Ibeletip or Ciboletto or something like that.
Sounds like a disease.
Yeah. That's right.
Well, it's obvious you're a very patient man, and many years ago,
Oh, no.
Steve asked me to leave something to him in my will, and I'm not going to wait that long. I'm going to leave it. I'm going to give it to him right now.
Oh my God!
I know he knows what it is.
Okay, there's another story then. So there was that mountain bike book that
Lee did. Yeah, mountain bike. Yeah.
So we had this. There's another. It was Ferrantino and Robert came over to my house one day and said, "Hey, we should have a clown party." All right, I guess that makes sense. And we showed up to the Tiki Bar out in the Avenues. What's that place called?
Right.
Trader Sam's.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've always described this bar as like, the Attic out here on 24th. That's kind of like a 22 or a 45 in terms of bars. Like, it does a lot of damage, but there's a practical use for it too. And this bar is like an assault rifle. Like its extent purpose is to just destroy you. And we had our clown party out there, and the next night we all had bozo cuts, and we were haggard. And then we had this mountain bike book release party, and everybody was there signing each other's books, and it was a very civil affair. And I got a hold of Scott's book, and it was every page was dicks and obscenities. And the next day I was working at a bike shop in Berkeley at this point, and I woke up and I got to work, and I was just like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. I don't have a lot of regrets about things, but this was one thing that I was having some issues with. And I called you, and Scott said, we were actually in bed looking at the book right now. And we thought, wouldn't this be a funny thing to show our grandkids? So there's another story, but this is something that I've had my eye on for forever. Budweiser slippers.
With a pop top. These were in the calendar.
Exactly.
Yeah. How beautiful are those, huh? Pop top.
I didn't have to wait until Scott died. Thank you.
My pleasure. All right, Roxy. I think we should have you come up again. Yeah, let's talk about. Okay. I think we're going to bring it a little more current now into present day Ibis, which is we're about 10 years now into present day Ibis, which has been a really wonderful ride. We're now down in Santa Cruz. The company was actually started up in Fort Bragg, where Nick and Amy live, and then we moved down to Sebastopol, or as I call it, Stupid Asshole, for about, and I call it Fort Bragg, Fart Bag, and now we were in Stupid Asshole, then we're in Santa Grossa, and but I don't have a Santa Cruz name yet. But anyway, now we're down in Santa Cruz, and Roxy is one of the partners in the company, along with Hans Heim, Tom Morgan, and our engineer Colin Hughes. So we have a super wonderful team now, all working together. And I'll tell you, I've honestly never been more excited about what's happening and what's going to be happening. You know, the Ripley came out. There's a bunch of other new stuff that hopefully Roxy's not going to show you. No, I'm just kidding. No, I don't. Anyway, we're working on a bunch of really neat stuff, and so Roxy's going to show you a couple of the the older projects and a little bit about her process and how we all work together and make and you know what we do now. Do we have a? You want to stand here? All righty.
shoulder first?
Yeah, I think so. Whoa.
So when I started with Ibis, I was still working at Pottery Barn, and I don't know if you know that, but I was the designer there for Pottery Barn Kids, and I actually met Cheryl through that job.
Random small world.
Random small world.
Yeah.
I was designing kids' products, and so there were stuffed bunnies and dollhouses and containers and bags and everything. So I made it down to Santa Cruz quite a bit to go riding, and hung out with people down there, and I had some friends in the bike industry, and they introduced me to Hans. And when he left Santa Cruz Bikes, he had a 2-year non-compete, and that gave us enough time to develop the first Mojo. This is actually a second part of the process. This is a foam model. It's a little bit different, I guess, as a designer coming into the bike industry versus, doing the technical stuff. The technical stuff is part of it, but I like to do the hands-on sculptural stuff. And coming from sketches and ideation, this was actually like 4 or 5 models in. This was actually to check clearance for parts. But we could pass that around. But essentially, it's
really cool.
It's foam and it's CNC'd, and then
Little jigsaw.
Yeah,
put together.
It was like too big in the machine because people don't usually make whole bike frames out of foam on a CNC machine. And like little parts are fine, but stuff like that wasn't used to really making full scale. Although I worked in the computer industry and I did full size monitors too. I guess it was a block of foam versus like a flat, long, big thing of foam. And that was pretty awesome. I have some sketches and stuff in my box too. We can look at later. They could be passed around or something. But they're really funny sketches because usually designers don't let you see the crappy illustrations that they make that are not glamorous and pretty, and these are not pretty. I mean, I think I have a sketch in there that like had little reminders of what all the parts are called of the bike. Like chainstay, seat stay, top tube. I'm like, what's that thing that, I don't know, that turns? Anyway, that was pretty comical, and I think I felt a little bit out of place in the beginning because, I have a process, and I've done a lot of different, I guess, manufacturing processes. And so my process is strong, but I never did any bikes or like full scale, like ride-on objects. And this was pretty intimidating, I think. But Hans was really patient with me. Some of the stuff looked really horrendous, and he would just say, just keep going. I see something in there. And I really attest a lot of the success of the Mojo to him and his support. And then then I think he started sharing stuff with you and with Tom, and so I started getting a little bit more feedback when it got to a much better place, I think. So yeah, that was the Mojo, and that was 2006 launch. It still stays with us, sort of like that one-hit wonder that you keep saying.
Yeah. It was 05, September of 05, I think, when we introduced that at Interbike, and we're still making bikes out of the same molds 7 years later. So it's got longevity that not a lot of people can claim, and it's because of all that, of Hans pushing and Roxy staying with it, and it was an amazing process. 2,000 hours of CAD time after Roxy, was done with her first work, and So yeah, these are not easy bikes to make, and but our new process that we've got is again not easy, and it's very, very, very time consuming, but the results speak for themselves. And we don't want to build bikes that are just disposable and change every year. We don't have model years. We do, we just do a model and then do it until it makes sense to come out with a new one or change it. The Ripley's, since we first conceived of the suspension on the Ripley, the eccentrics, that was, that was 2005 when the eccentrics were first discussed on a bike, and then we started on a different bike, but anyway, that's 7 years in the process is that bike. So we don't do anything fast.
One of the cool things, and you'll see turning the model around, is that what I notice when you get into the computer stage is a lot of times you start not realizing how things feel anymore. And if you don't take the time to sculpt and feel things by hand and look at it from every other angle, because that's what I appreciate. I appreciate seeing things from, like, turning my bike over and having it feel like really nice from the bottom, or picking it up and not having it feel like a square block or something. So that's the level of detail we go into. For the Ripley, this is actually the first model, and this is a 26er version. When we thought we were going to do a 26er, I broke the thing. It's so delicate. It's like one of these really, it's really delicate, but don't worry about it. Just don't crack it on your knee or anything. It's seen some better days. So it's really skinny because what happens is I'll start with like the shape and the general size, but I'll actually take it and sand it down by hand. So I'll do one side, and then if I like it, I'll like repeat it on the other side. It's really important to me to like look at it and feel it from every angle, like I said. This particular frame, I felt like the Ripley had the awesome eccentrics, and they were going to be hidden because they're kind of nested in there. But I really wanted to try a different form factor, so it wasn't so smooth and like nebulous as the Mojo, perhaps. I think the name sort of like was like, ooh, sexy round thing. But this one was like, I'm aggressive and I'm like straight. So yeah, that's what happened to that. And yeah, so it's a matter of time and energy, and sometimes it doesn't come that quickly either. I guess what's really nice about working with Ibis especially is that we do things in a very considered way. We won't release like another bike because we want to put new graphics on it, or we want to make it something that next year's version will be like incrementally better. So I really like that because I was in retail for quite a while, and and yeah, it was a really fast product cycle. So it wasn't really fun. This is really fun because you get to ride it, which I have the first small size.
Yeah.
Yay. I actually went to the factory like not too long ago. That was pretty awesome. I was like, that's my bike. Hurry up and ship it to me when I ride it.
And so we got Roxy her new bike on April Fool's Day, which happens to be her birthday too. So
I got to ride on my birthday, and then I got deathly ill the next day. It's okay. No.
One of the there's a fun other we're kind of connecting some circles here tonight, and we connected a couple bike circles recently through food. In sometime in the mid '90s, I was invited to go to Borneo with a group of people, and we were going to scout out a course for a 24-hour race that they wanted to have in Borneo. And Borneo's pretty much on the equator, and it's really hot there. And personally, I hate riding in the tropics. It's just, I think it's the most miserable thing, It's like, there's a reason you go sit on the beach in the tropics, because that's really the only thing it's good for. And unless you get to high elevation. So we went to scout this 24-hour course, and we kept hearing about the single track of it, and it never materialized. But what did materialize was some phenomenal food and making some great friends. And the guy who was the head of tourism, Malaysia Tourism, a guy named Malcolm, I've stayed in touch with him, 15, 18 years now, whatever it's been. And Roxy just did a trip to Borneo over in December,
Yeah.
and hooked up with Malcolm and did this insane culinary tour of Malaysia. And she was really so good about taking pictures of all her meals and putting them all on Facebook, and just living vicariously through Roxy. And she's a phenomenal chef, and she's one of those people who posts her meals on Facebook all the time. But
One of those people.
She makes the meal. It's not one she's getting at a restaurant. It's one she makes herself, and there's a difference there. So anyway, Roxy brought me back some laksa, which is this incredible spicy soup that you make with this special paste that they make in that part of Malaysia.
And they're really, really particular about the laksa. They're like, oh yeah, you have to go to this stall, and you have to have this lime and this sambal sauce, and so brought back some delicious laksa. But
yeah,
I think I ate laksa like every day.
Yeah.
It made me gain like 10 pounds or something.
It's a flavor you've never had before. Okay, so we're degenerating this conversation pretty far away from bikes, which is fine, that's all right. But I think, Morgan, do we have any Tweety birds out there or any?
We do, but we should maybe see what's going on with the crowd here, if anybody has any
Yeah.
questions within
Okay.
the space here, and then we can kind of take it to the
Yeah.
internet zone.
Yeah. Thanks, Roxy.
So if anybody has any questions, just raise your hand and shout it out.
I just have one.
Okay.
Why did you never vent the tubes?
What's that?
The old steel
Yeah.
bicycle frames, none of them are vented.
No, I'm sorry. Why we didn't?
Why did you didn't drill vent holes in your tubes?
Yeah, we did.
You did?
Yeah, and then we covered them up.
Oh, you would
Yeah.
roll over them and grind them down.
Yeah, that's one of the things John was talking
And
about.
so
Yeah.
did you roll them with linseed oil?
No,
You didn't treat them with anything. You
no,
just- okay.
no. We just cleaned them out before we welded them.
Nice.
Yeah. So yeah, we did have we had them, but we covered them up. Just a little dab of brass and then sanded them nice and pretty. Yeah. Yeah.
Anybody else have a question?
I've obviously answered all the questions. That's good. Yeah. Go ahead. We got one up here. Oh wait, we got one back there. Go ahead.
Can you talk about what precipitated the different moves from Fort Bragg to Sebastopol, Santa Rosa, Santa Cruz?
Yeah. I was just being a hippie, living, up in the wilderness. No, not in the wilderness. Up in, just up in the woods of Fort Bragg, because I'd landed up there for doing a job up after I finished school, and I decided to, I wanted to start building bikes, and I did, and I built my first bikes up there, and then I wanted to get a little bit closer to a bigger population base, and so that's when I moved to Sebastopol. And so I lived there, built a shop, and then built a house. And Ibis was on my property. I had a few acres of apples, and I just built the bikes there. And then Ibis started to grow, so I didn't want to have all those people at my house all day every day. So we moved to a shop downtown, and we were there. And then we were there for about almost 10 years, and then we moved over to Santa Rosa for a little while, and then I actually ended up selling the company in 2000, and then the company soon after that went bankrupt, and that's what precipitated the move to Santa Cruz. Is that I mentioned the partners in the business being Hansheim, Tom Morgan, Roxy, Colin, and me. And so Hans called me, and he was a half owner of Santa Cruz Bicycles, and he had just left the company and was looking to do something else. And so Hans lived down there, Tom lived down there, and it just made sense for us to have the company down there. And so we moved it down there and just did Ibis V2, and it's been there ever since, down on the west end of Santa Cruz. It's a nice place to be. So. That's the the southern migration of Ibis. Hopefully that's it. No further south. Yeah.
I'm just curious if all the bikes now are, all the future bikes will be purely carbon. And when you talked about this process of designing the bikes and this tangibility, and now everything's in the computer, and these are really nice to see, but is there any tinkering with steel frames and the old school style of bike building? And do you miss that?
I don't really miss it, but there's definitely the Ripley. We have this carbon fiber hardtail called a tranny, and we converted that into the test mule. And so the mule was this bike that where we proved the eccentric concept. And so there's a lot of that kind of fabrication, and then it's like Roxy's work starts out as hand gestural drawings. It doesn't come from the computer. It only goes into the computer once she's got her shapes where she wants them. And that's the way Cheryl, my wife, does her work too. She does it by hand because it's difficult to get that that look directly out of the computer. So those, we used to, the paradigm is kind of been form follows function, and we're sort of subverting that now and going into really trying to get the form of the bike first, and then we build in literally we give Roxy a set of dots. We say here's the suspension points, here's the axles, here's where the head angle is, here's the top of the seat tube, here's the BB, and that's what we give her, and then we say connect the dots, and that's when she has her cheat sheet of learning what a top tube is and all that. I mean, that is how it started back then, which was exactly what we wanted. We wanted that naivety, and the Mojo turned the industry on its ear. Nobody had ever seen anything like it. So we accomplished exactly what we wanted to by building that bike, and so there isn't that hands-on with the welding torch and all that, but there's a tremendous amount of handwork and of I think super creative work happening. You can come and see Roxy, working on her little projects and sanding things, and so yeah, it's gone to a very different place. It's a very different type of building. But I kind of look at it like you look at like musical artists. They evolve their careers, and some people really want them to stay where I want to hear that, that original Joni Mitchell, not that jazzy Joni Mitchell or whoever it is. I'm sorry, I'm dating myself there, but I think we look at it also as an evolution, and we really, carbon fiber is a phenomenal material, and that's all we're building out of now. I'm not saying that we won't diverge and go do more tie bikes or aluminum or steel or something like that. We talk about it. Actually, we'd love to, but we're trying to keep a really strong focus. And we recently doubled the size of our engineering department. We have 2 people now, so we don't. There's not a lot of throughput with a tiny crew. There's about 14 people at Ibis, and we don't want it to be bigger. And we get a lot done. We're a really lean company, and we sell to 40 different countries. We have 40 distributors all over the world. So, sometimes we act like a big company with all our distributors and worldwide domination. But we're tiny. We're little, and we want to keep it that way because we value we value that our lifestyle, and we want to be able to ride our bikes and not be completely taken over by it. So we'd love to do other stuff. We have a million ideas, and we can only do so. We've chosen to stay focused and only do so much.
Yeah, what was the idea behind the Mojo HD, and did that coincide with Brian Lopes' relationship with you guys?
The Mojo HD is a 160 millimeter travel bike. It's the Mojo that came out in 2005 is 140 millimeter travel. And we, what we do is a lot of us on staff ride and do a lot of racing. Our sales guy, Jeff, just raced in that first California Enduro Series and won it, And you know, he's just a desk jockey. I mean, not just a desk jockey. He has a day job. You know, he's not a professional, racer. And so, you know, I hate it when companies say, "Oh, we all ride." You know, it's like, of course everybody rides. You're in the bike industry. That's why you're here. You're not here to answer your question, Morgan. We're not here for the Benjamins. You know, I don't drive an Aston Martin. You know, so. You know, we ride we build what we want to ride, and so the HD was just the next obvious place for us to go after the Mojo. You know, we know that the market, everyone wants us to build a downhill bike, but the market is we can't really do it. We can't justify it with our, with the focus that we need to keep on developing the products. We have to choose something that we're, the Mojo costs $500,000 to develop. It's an expensive bike. And for a little tiny company, we gambled the entire company on the Mojo. So we have to be really confident that what we're doing is going to work. So we knew that the HD was going to be fertile ground for really robust sales. Our best-selling bike, right now until, the numbers of the Ripley come up. But it actually probably is what one of the things that kind of brought Brian to our attention to Brian, and because they approached us, we didn't, he approached us, and also so did Anne-Caroline Chasson, who races for us. So for those of you who don't know, we have this woman named Anne-Caroline Chasson racing, and she's the best downhiller in history. She's won 55 World Cup races. And the second winningest World Cup racer is Brian Lopes at 26. So we've got the two winningest World Cup racers. Little old Ibis, has the two winningest World Cup racers ever. And Anne has won 19 UCI World Championships. She's only 34. And she raced the Enduro all over the world last year, and she won every single race she entered. She didn't even DNF on any of them. She won every race. So 2 years ago, or probably three now, Anne's bike sponsor went belly up, and she wrote us this cute little email. Said, "Hi, my name's Anne. Obviously I can't hear what it was typed, so I'm making this up, right? But like, hello, my name's Anne. I race bikes, and I was wondering I'd like to maybe ride your bikes this year." And we're like, ACC. She's the haunch, of all time, and it's like, yeah, we know who you are, Anne. And so anyway, she approached us, and it was predominantly because of the HD. And so we read the market right, and hopefully we'll continue to do that. We've got a bunch of good stuff in the works right now. No, I'm not going to tell you about it. Did you have one?
So Ibis, based in Santa Cruz, has taken a pretty cool interest in seeing some of the local trail projects that have finally happened after decades and decades of stagnant stuff. So you guys were really cool to donate a bridge on the new Pogonet project, and I wonder if you'd like to fill us in on your commitment to the new Demo Forest project.
Yeah, absolutely. So Mountain Bikers of Santa Cruz is, back up a little bit. We have a pretty good history of advocacy at Ibis. We really, we like riding bikes, even though I don't like to say that we like it because it's obvious. So we like riding bikes. We've raised a lot of money for different groups. The Sierra Buttes Trail Stewardship, probably some of you know, up in Downeyville, they do great work. And we recently helped out with this Pogonet Trail. And by the way, of course I haven't ridden it, but if you guys ever get a chance, it's one of the most incredible trails you'll ever ride. I actually have ridden it, even though it's closed. So it's this new trail that was built down in Santa Cruz that was it's phenomenal. And we've collaborated with them and helped, given some money for a bridge. And so what we're doing now is we've announced 2 days ago that we are giving away either a Ripley or a Mojo HD to a random person chosen on May 1st. And what we're doing is we're getting people to buy little chunks of this new trail that's happening in Demo Forest, which is the SoCal Demonstration State Forest down there. And there's an old logged out area that the State Forest has given mountain bikers of Santa Cruz permission to build a flow trail. So one of those really cool, like bermed up, super fun trails. And so we are selling $5 raffle tickets at the Santa Cruz Mountain Bike Festival tomorrow and Sea Otter next week, and then online until May 1st. And we're going to try to help them raise a little bit of money to get that trail built. And those are neat projects. People from all over the world donate. It was really neat when we launched it. 7 hours later, we were looking at all the donations, and they'd come in from all over the place. It was really cool. So we try to, like we do these trail projects in different areas. This one happens to be very much in Ibis's backyard in Santa Cruz. But it's a really neat way to raise money. It's just to $5 increments is all it takes. And so some lucky person is going to have donated a little bit of money and helped us put a trail project together and hopefully get this thing built, which will be good for everybody. And just a little side note on this: when you seed, one of the really amazing things is when you seed a group with some money. A lot of times, you can get matching funds. So when we did a raffle up at for CR Buttes last time, we raised $35,000. It was a good chunk of money, and they actually ended up getting some. There's some federal grants available. Say, well, if you raise 20 grand, we'll match it. And so they got all these matching funds grants, and then they went to other places like Ducks Unlimited in place, and just I think that 35 turned into something like $110,000, and that was all done with that. So that was like people like all of you putting $5 in, and then we just swelled the pot, and then it just snowballed from there. So so thank you for bringing that up. It's we're pretty excited about it, and some very lucky person is going to win a gorgeous brand new bike, and it's a fun way. It's crowdsourcing. There's not a lot of money in the state coffers to build things like this. So we all need to open our wallets a little bit and hopefully participate in this kind of thing.
I think one of the coolest things that I actually saw on the Poganip project was Colin, one of the main partners of Ibis.
Yeah.
Their engineer has spent basically every single free weekend he has out on that project because of an incident he had just riding in the area. He's like, dude, we need an opportunity to be able to ride to the trails we want to.
Yeah.
And took it upon himself to be a part of that. So
yeah.
they definitely practice what they preach.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, Colin's been really strong advocate there, and we're doing demos on Ripley's at Sea Otter and at Santa Cruz Festival, and we always do. Demos are always free, but these we're charging, but we're donating 100% of the proceeds go to the mountain bikers of Santa Cruz. So hopefully that'll be a successful little fundraiser for us. I'm not going to hit you guys up, don't worry. But you can do the right thing and go online. Question back here?
It sounds like you've done a lot of really unconventional things
Yeah.
as a bike company, and as a result, you've been wildly successful from hiring a designer with no previous bike experience, et cetera.
Yeah.
What are some of the things you've done just throughout the years that you attribute to your success along those lines, and also just like on an ongoing basis to build what seems like a really special company?
I think Mike was talking about at the beginning, just when he was introducing us, just about being one. Well, he said OG, which I like. That was nice. I like hearing that. But just that we've got this self-effacing humor. Those are my words. But I think what we try to do is we try to disarm people, and I think we try to make what I've always said. What I've always tried to be to have Ibis be is not an exclusive company. We want it to be an inclusive company, and it's just it's as simple as that. We don't want to exclude anybody, and our bikes are expensive, so that's going to automatically exclude people. But I think that through kind of having a friendly attitude and trying to be there for people, we are, we make you feel part of. We try to make you feel part of us because that's the way we feel. I mean, the incoming email at Ibis still comes to me. I still answer it. And so I like to keep my finger on the pulse of what's happening out there, and that's how one of the ways that I do that. And so I think that just to really sum up what kind of what your question is, it's really simple. It's just trying to trying to build nice, be nice to people and create fun. Create fun for people, basically. I mean, that's what we're trying to do. Yep. Question here.
I really like the approach to design you've been talking about tonight and how you built stuff. And you've talked about all these great successes, and I was kind of curious if you had any failures that you learned from that you could talk about.
I think, we see. The Ripley took a long time to get to market, and we probably made a few missteps there. We maybe shouldn't have announced it so soon. We've definitely had some problems with factories, with the people that we're working with, and we learned the hard way. But we do. But the point is that we do learn. So there's been plenty of missteps. We're pretty thorough with our product development. So we've only, all these years of making, all these bikes come out of molds, and we've only ever had one mold that we had to throw away because something was not done right. And it's it's like it's a $20,000 mistake. It's not a cheap one, so you don't want to do that very often. So I think, we're 32 years old, and so we learn a lot of things along the way, and we still have a lot to learn. But I think we're good at learning from the mistakes we make, and I don't have a lot of specific huge blunders in mind that we've done, but we've certainly had to kind of recalibrate and steer the ship in a different direction a bunch of times. But I have to say that working with Tom and Hans, and Tom and Hans and I are, we're on the email with each other every morning, every evening, 7 days a week, all day long, and very, very strategic. And we're always out there, and we're looking, and we're all working together, trying to make sure that we're doing the right thing. And we've got such a really good group working for us. It's really been great. And in the past, I mean working with guys like John, like super thorough, meticulous on every single thing he does. We're very fortunate that we've been able to collaborate with people like this. And we haven't, we're not afraid of kind of not invented here. We're happy to bring people in from the outside. We license John's design, we license Dave Wiegel's design, and I think that's an easy pitfall to make, is to go too far into having to protect your intellectual property and stuff like that. And so I think we've got the formula that we're pretty happy with, and the fact that we're not that takes 7 years, or 3 years in the case of the Mojo or something like that, means we're thorough, and we kind of look through a lot of those potential pitfalls. So probably on the way home tonight, I'll think of 20 really stupid blunders that we have done. I don't know, you probably know some.
Hey Scott, we're going to take a few from the Twitter sphere,
okay,
if you don't mind.
All right.
The first one we have here is from Seb Kemp. It's if you had the power to change one thing about the industry, what would it be?
The power to change one thing about the industry, what would it be? Wow. Maybe we should come back to that question. I need
take
to
that
think.
offline.
Or in a minute. I don't know. it'd be hard to single out one thing. there'd be a lot of things to change.
I'll try one more here from the same person. Were you ever kept up all night thinking, why did I do that? Please let me turn back time.
I have
Big
to
or
say, Mike, when we were talking before before this event, he sort of asked me a similar question. Like what are my regrets? And honestly, I don't have. I'm pretty happy with where Ibis is and where I am and the life that I have, and I actually tend to sleep pretty well at night. There's not a lot of those freakouts. So no, I haven't really. Probably the darkest moments were after I sold the company. That and things weren't going well. That was not good. But in hindsight, at least from my standpoint now, it's one of the better things that's happened because we're in, the company's really doing really well right now. So that was probably the single kind of darkest point in time was back then. I'm still thinking about Seb's other question, by the way.
We'll circle back on that. One here from somebody from Mission Workshop. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. How does your relationship with companies like SRAM and Shimano affect bike design?
We, Tom and Hans participate in a really neat little project with Shimano, this Influencers project, and they ask us a lot of questions every year, and they want to find out where our thinking is and what we're looking for in the future. I'm not so sure what they say, how far it goes, but it's really nice to know that a big company like Shimano invites us to tell them what we want to see as far as new product development goes in the future. And Shimano's a big lumbering, Goliath, and they don't change fast, and so it's difficult. It's hard to see. But what is really neat is that if you look at our sales line items, you've got all these various customers, but consistently one of the top customers is industry sales, and that is the guys at places like Fox or RockShox or Easton or places like that are buying bikes from us and riding them. So we have a tremendous amount of penetration into the industry, into the people, and RockShox and Fox being two really critical ones that are developing all the suspension technology. Those guys, a lot of those engineers are riding our bikes, which is great for us because that we get a ton of good feedback from them, and they're building shocks that work on our bikes. So it's a really good relationship. There's not as much collaboration. Some of the bigger component companies, there's not as much direct back and forth. I think their product cycles are a lot longer, and there's not quite as much there. But they definitely do engage us. Again, though, it's hard to say how much of that actually gets out to market. But a lot of the smaller companies, not the SRAMs and Shimanos of the world, but a lot of smaller companies we work really closely with on their product development, how it's going to, like the wheel companies and the guys making the chain guides and all sorts of people like that. We're really tight with, and we do a lot of nice collaboration. One thing I would change about the bike industry? Still working on that. Yeah.
Anybody in the house have any more questions?
Yes.
Why orange? I see orange. Is there a reason, or is that just why orange?
That is a very good question. No, I think you just need to ask the designers of these shirts. What's up with that? We've had orange bikes pretty often, And some of the old Eddie Merckx raced on a beautiful orange bike, and I think for me a lot of that was just like, because he was my hero, you know, and so like I think probably a lot of the orange came from that. Just remember seeing those beautiful bikes that he was racing on. Plus you got to mix it up, and orange definitely stands out. So tonight you guys are drinking some New Belgium beer. And that was graciously donated by friends at New Belgium. And so thank you, New Belgium. They're a really, really fantastic company that just is doing everything right. And so Ibis is about 10 years older than New Belgium is. And they're a little bit bigger than we are now. I think, what are they, like 750,000 kegs a year or something? They're huge. And I think they're the third biggest of that. There's the Budweisers, right, and then of all the kind of the craft beers producers, they're in that level, with Sam Adams and all of this. But anyway, we had a race team back in the early to mid '90s up in Vail with a guy named the Pope, Jim Popek, and out of a shop in Vail. And the Pope is a very gregarious guy, and he convinced this little upstart brewery in Fort Collins, Colorado, to sponsor our team. So every time we had a little team party, the people who had just started this little brewery would drive from Fort Collins to Vail delivering kegs of beer. And that was New Belgium. That was Kim and Jeff who founded the company. So we go way back with New Belgium to when they were built, like literally just brewing up a few kegs a year. So they were the ones I wanted to go to tonight to, even though we got Anchor right here and Sierra Nevada, you got to spread the love, right, when you're asking for free stuff. So, so anyway, shout out to New Belgium, and that was the race team from that era when all those guys were racing out in Colorado. So, how we doing? Oh, yes.
Yeah, thanks for coming out.
You're welcome. Yeah.
Since 2006.
Yeah.
When you guys started out with the Ripley, why the drastic departure in design from that to the Mojo? Did you not want to have a connection or a link?
Roxy, do you wanna take that one?
Yeah, that was based on the geometry of the shock. Oh, sorry. Shock and suspension, where the shock is placed. That's optimal, and we work with Dave Weigel with that. There is the iconic bridge with the Mojo. I think for some people, if they had their druthers, they'd have like every bike possible made with that shape. But honestly, you can't always do that, right? Because you have shock placement, and for me, this particular frame and like the tranny as well, and certain other frames, there's speed and dynamics of how the frame looks, but there's also the lightness. Like, you don't want a heavy bike just because you want the design. I wouldn't say it's a compromise. I think it's a consideration that you have to take when you're making a competitive product that has to meet weight, and it has to be pleasing to the eye, but it has to meet weight. People want to go fast. Like, I like going fast. I want the lightest thing possible. And I think that the particular design really showcases like the clevis area and the rear triangle and the eccentrics. I mean, there's a bit of the design that just takes your focus around the bike, but it just leads you to the rear. I mean, that's what it does for me, and it leads you to kind of like the rear and the shock. The clevis in itself is pretty amazing, like how it's created and the shape. That is carbon fiber, like molded in this crazy ass way. And I don't know, I just really dig that. And I think that sometimes if you just kind of play back to something that you've done before, it might be okay because it looks okay, but it's not the best for that product.
And a couple of other practical considerations were that people were asking for, water bottle mounts, and so the Ripley does hold a water bottle inside the triangle. And the standover is really low. I mean, even though this is a 29er. Yeah. It's super low. I mean, it's even, like I say, even though it's a 29er, it's lower than the Mojo, right? I mean, it's nutty. Yeah. So. Yeah. Yeah.
Which goes to my next question.
Yeah.
You know, the whole, mountain biking seems to have a lot of trends lately. I mean, not lately, but it's always been kind of that thing of trends, cycles that happen, no pun intended. Especially now with 650B on the rise. What do you think? I mean, is that something you guys will ever consider, or I know 29er is, it's been out, it's been kind of established itself. It's now everybody's talking about 650B as being the optimal standard between the large and the small. I mean, what's your idea?
Well, it's funny because obviously 650B is huge. It's lighting on fire everywhere, all over the world. And I think in 10 years the landscape will be pretty different. I think 650B will probably be pretty strong. I mean, it's hard to say where it's going to land, but probably the biggest casualty will be 26. And it's gonna land between 650 and 29. What's funny though is you talk about trends and such. Is a lot of people. You get on the forums and they're like, oh, these bike companies are shoving this stuff down our throat, And it's like, not exactly. We're looking at what people are asking for when we're designing a bike, and that's where it comes from. It comes from listening and paying attention. And so, people are talking about 650 a lot, and it's not easy. It's not easy to have 3 wheel sizes. I feel sorry for dealers because now they're going to have stock all 3, right? It's problematic, but it's not us. It's not the dealers. It's not the industry shoving it down anybody's throat. It's people asking for it. And it's there are certain things that are definitely better. Like tapered steers through axles, things like that. And the industry it's changing and it's getting better. We make incremental changes to lighter, stronger, stiffer. You're getting all 3 of those. And I can't imagine what the bikes are going to be like in 10 years. If you look at the last 10 years, the evolution has been just phenomenal. And it's there's no great killer app that's been invented. It's just small incremental changes all the time. Just the Ripley and its development, just the technologies that changed during that time. This bike morphed quite a bit just because of different technologies that were happening. We're going to embrace this change. We like seeing all of these improvements happen because it makes our riding experience better. And we're not doing it to sell more bikes. The Mojo came out in 2005. We're still using that same mold. So obviously we're not the guys who are driving that trend of changing every year just for the sake of change, But on the other hand, we embrace it, and we'll keep embracing it. So that's a non-answer to the 650B question, but.
Hey Scott, we have another question from the Internaut. Jeffrey M. Hallibert asks, "Tell us a fun story about Charlie Cunningham and/or Andy Grayson." Go.
Jeffrey Hallibert. Hi, Jeff. Let's see. Charlie Cunningham. I'm trying to think of. I have a few stories in mind, but I think there's some that I can't really tell that are phenomenal. So one of the legends about Charlie. So Charlie Cunningham is a frame builder in Marin who I apprenticed under, and he was one of the founders of WTB, and he's a wonderful, very, very smart, fun, eccentric guy. Rides really, really well, and I met him in 1980. I went to this new store in Fairfax called Mountain Bikes. That was the name of the store, and it was owned by Gary Fisher and Charlie Kelly, and a guy named Tom Ritchie was building the frames for him. And so they were going out to Crested Butte for the 3rd annual Fat Tire or Pearl Pass Tour, and so they asked me if I had a car, and I said, yeah, I got a car. And they said, good, because none of us do. We're just a bunch of dirtbags who ride bikes on Mount Tam. And so I brought a car, and they said, okay, we all piled into this station wagon and drove out to Crested Butte. But when I got there, they're sorting out who's going with whom, right? And so Joe Breeze is there, and Fisher, and Tom, and all these guys. And so they're all Marin guys, and they're assigning who's riding with who in the various cars. And so then this guy shows up, and he's got a puffy down jacket with duct tape all over it from where the welding holes are burned in it. And he's got this big fat tired aluminum bike with drop bars, and everybody's kind of going, oh. I mean, mountain bikes are 2 years old by then, but they've already got tradition, and here comes this guy who's like, whoa, what's all this stuff? And so anyway, of course, it was Charlie. And so Gary and Joe and all these guys are assigning the vehicles for our little caravan out to Crested Butte. And they just, they said, you ride, they put Charlie with me. And because they didn't really, they weren't really sure about this guy. So anyway, that was the start of our friendship. And it was like, John was talking about the 12-hour road trip, or the 10-hour road trip. This one was more like 20 because the car wasn't as fast back then. And so I had 20 hours in the car with Charlie, actually, and then another 20 coming back. So that's how I first met Charlie, and he is a legend. But one of the stories that I probably shouldn't tell, but what I've heard, and I never witnessed this, but from Tam Junction every Sunday morning there's a motorcycle ride that's happened forever that goes up Highway 1, and it's like a little unofficial race. And apparently Charlie was really into go-karts back in the day, and would wait for the fast guys to come by on this motorcycle ride up Highway 1. And then he'd be up at like a driveway or something, and he'd get on this go-kart, and he'd get down onto the road, and he'd go past all the guys on the motorcycles, and then he had his spot all figured out, and he'd pull off. And, like all these motorcycle guys were talking about this afterwards, like, it was just like this legend, this apparition that happened. And anyway, that's what I heard. So just repeating what I heard. But anyway, so that's a good Charlie story. And then I told you a couple about Andy already, about Andy Grayson. He's the guy who was on Letterman and like fought the power, and, told the man where to shove it. So anyway, how are we looking out there? You guys want to wrap this thing up? It might be time, huh? Did we use up our half hour yet? What do you think, Morgan?
Any more questions from the crowd? No?
I think the crowd's thirsty and wants to pee.
Well, thank you so much all for coming out here tonight, Friday night. 8 o'clock. Bunch of nerds hanging out here with us, for sure. But thanks to Scott, thanks to Evan, thanks to all Mission Workshop, thanks to Ferentino, thanks to our IT department, all the guys helping us out, making this thing happen. Pretty awesome. There's going to be hopefully more of these to come. So we'll see. This is the first of these, if you guys don't know it. So I think it was pretty fun and interesting, and y'all learned something, right? So
Tell Seb I'll get back to him later on that question.
Yeah, quick. Yeah, too. He's going to want that answer.
That's a good question.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good one. And I don't think, it's not one I can just like, I think it deserves some thought.
You have 20 minutes.
Okay.
I was hoping you'd say 650B.
Yeah, he was. Exactly. Oh, yeah, one more. A better one. A better one.
Yeah.
Yeah, a better one, though. Right? Yeah.
Yeah, there's all those. Those are all low-hanging fruit. You know, I'm trying to think of the bigger, you know, like bigger ideas. You know? That's all. That's easy. I mean, that's quick and easy to change. I don't know if Seb was looking for the
I think he was looking for something a little bit more than BB changes or industry standards.
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
Magic bullet.
Yeah.
We'll see. 20 minutes.
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
All right. Well, thank you all so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Yay.